Tonight, meeting of Oswestry Town Council on Wednesday the 6th of November 2024. We start as usual with public participation session. So we've got several members of the public here, all of whom I believe have something to say tonight. So I'll keep it simple and start from the left and work my way to the right if that's okay. Peter, good to see you.
Okay, I'll try and
Would you care to come and use this microphone, if that's okay?
I'll try to be quick. If I knew there were so many speakers, I wouldn't have raised this. But it's in response to Councillor Owen's motion, which, by the by, mentions on-street resident parking. And I just wanted to remind councillors, or bring to their attention, but probably remind them, of the absolute failure of on-street residents parking in Oswestry since 2009, when the Oswestry Borough Council was dissolved and Shropshire Council became a unitary council. In certain streets, people park and go to work, or park and go to shops. There's immense pressure on parking. It's a cause of stress, tension, interpersonal arguments. All sorts of things happen. Oswestry has some residence parking schemes. The one I'm familiar with is Ferrers Road. It was set up under the Borough Council. It involved a whole process, giving residents information, consulting them, balloting them, because they have to pay for it, and designing a scheme. Those schemes, I only know the Ferrers Road one in detail, were left adrift in 2009. Fees weren't collected. They were intermittently enforced. Because we have a resident association in our area, sorry, I'm nervous now. Because we had a resident association in our area, we were able to make contact through Shropshire Councils with the council officers, with the enforcers, and informally get them to enforce the system. So the way in which it broke down in particular was that although permits were issued, they suspended payments because they were going to renew the scheme later on. But unfortunately, this hasn't happened 15 years later. So permits were issued, but proper checks were not done. So permits ended up in the hands of people who weren't qualified to have them. So this has drifted on. A lot of streets want residents parking. We approached Shropshire Council in 2014 to try and get them to improve and get the scheme working. Didn't work. In 2018, they introduced a parking policy which had special arrangements for residents parking, on-street residents parking, and promised that things would be properly organised. It's a complex issue. Shropshire Council since then has lost a lot of staff, a lot of money. I don't know quite why, but the design and implementation of the scheme in Bridgnorth didn't work particularly well. It's got all sorts of problems. So what we tend to do in our resident association, we get our councillor or to approach council officers to tell us what the situation is, and the situation is always it will be another year. So I wanted, I wanted to raise this for the reason I said. It's not simple to get on streets residence parking. It's a fundamental thing. It's a fundamental organisational benefit that a local authority should be able to provide. Just as in the 19th century, they provided sewage and clean water. For residents, it's an important matter, and I wanted to draw attention to it.
Thank you, Peter. It is definitely a very complicated matter, but one that I would always support needs looking at. And yeah, we've had many a conversation on the subject, haven't we? Thank you. Next we have Paul Newman.
Press that one.
It's already on.
I should know by now. Hello, everybody. Thank you. Firstly, apologies for my appearance. Like a few of you, actually, who were involved in refurbishing a building in the town this week. I've been up a ladder painting and doing decorating today and didn't have time to change. Most of you know me pretty well, but for the benefit of a few that perhaps don't know me, I work with a number of charities and small businesses in Oswestry. Oswestry is my passion, and I support those small businesses and charities in the best way I can, from indoor market stalls to OSNOSH. And in the course of doing that, I've done a lot of work with the support of the town council and many of the previous mayors since I've been doing this sort of work for the last 6 years now, and including the current support from Mike on a few projects. I guess I've been heavily involved with the Memorial Hall for the last 12 months, and I came to the table here less than 12 months ago, about 10 months ago, to just mention the fact that I was looking at supporting the charity that runs the hall with a number of aspects of keeping the hall fit for purpose, utilised by the community, safe for the community, and basically treasured as a real important heritage site within the building. It is a bit unique in that it's owned and managed by the Charitable Trust and the trustees that run the organisation, and not having direct support from local authorities in any way. And in the course of doing that work, getting involved with them at the Memorial Hall, we've been able to kickstart a number of new activities, really exciting things that have gone on through the summer in particular. We've got a huge number of new groups that we've helped start within the hall. So not just hosting existing groups, but helping people and individuals start new groups, whether that's vocal groups, whether that's game board nights, whether that's other support functions and health groups that we've helped enable to start and to support and nurture them within the hall. We've also run some intergenerational projects through the summer where we've invited young and old to come together to do music and to do some crafts and some games. So we've really had some fantastic examples of activity in the hall, and the value of that central community hub, I think, has started to emerge, and many more people are in the hall. My role changed about four months ago with the hall, and I took on full responsibility on behalf of the trustees for tackling a number of challenges with the hall. And I'll list them very briefly. One is that the hall needs to have an identity and be welcoming and offer a positive experience to anyone who visits it. You'll know if you've been in the hall in previous years that wasn't always the case. We need to have a building that is safe and secure and in good condition, and that's not always been the case. We need to have the finances of the charity in good order. We need to report well on those finances and make sure that it holds its own. It doesn't need to make a profit, but it does need to cover the costs of running such a centre. We need to manage the governance of the charity well and effectively, and that includes all the compliance and the record keeping that's necessary for any sort of public building. It's a big, long list. And I wouldn't say that the building's been neglected, but many of these activities have not received full attention over the historic years. There were many times when I personally and some of the support people around me thought, let's just step away because this is a big challenge. And there are many, many people who said, please don't do that. many users of the existing users of the hall, and also many of the new groups and clubs that we've brought to the hall in the last 6 months have said, no, please carry on, and how can we help? One example of that help has been a just quite breathtaking amount of support that we've received from the community for a refurbishment project. ACO triggered this by offering to charities in the county some support, DIY SOS style, to community venues or to charities. And remarkably, we were successful in securing that support against lots of competitive bids from around the county. And they offered some fantastic support, several people every day for a week. The problem came that they could only give us 1 week, and it's this week, when we had 3 weeks' notice that they were going to give us such an army of resources. What we were able to do, though, is secure help from a number of individuals, and there are 3 people in this room around this table, actually, who have directly offered their help. And I will name them because I think it's important to know. And Jay has been fantastic with his practical skills. Thank you, Jay. Duncan and Ollie are coming along with paintbrushes tomorrow, and are always offering, considered advice and input to how we try and develop the hall. So thank you for the 3 of you who have already stepped forward. But more than that, we've had apprentices, training teams, and other members of the community, individuals and charities and businesses coming together. The Lions have offered some funding, ACO obviously have offered a lot, but many of the user groups using the hall have given up their time and effort to come in and help with the work, and it's going really, really well. But of course, when you do that sort of work, you uncover things, and more so than in the previous 4 months, we've stripped back walls, we've pulled back ceiling tiles, and we've identified things that we don't feel is fit for purpose, we don't feel is right, and so we're onto it. We've got electricians in looking at some of the electrics. We've got ACO and others helping us with some of the fire safety elements, such as emergency lighting and so on, making sure that we've got them working and in the right place. And that's basically where we're at. We're going through that list and we're prioritising those things that are most important to resolve, and we're putting in place plans for some of the bigger investments that we need to make. And I come today not only to tell you that good news story so far, but also on the back of the fact that I know someone who's been personally directly involved this week already, Jay, who came in on Monday, and I'm sure Duncan and Ollie will do tomorrow, offered some support in the form of how can we get the council to help. And I've seen that there's been a motion raised, and I just wanted to be here to thank the council for considering how you might be able to help the hall retain its status in the town and its importance in the town. So thank you.
Thank you for your time tonight. Thank you for bringing that information to us. It's a very exciting project. So
Thank you.
all the best with it. Thank you. I'm just conscious of the time, so I'll just propose that we do suspend standing orders to enable the remainder of the public who wish to speak to do so. Is that seconded? Thank you. All in favour?
We don't want too long. We've got our own business to do. We've submitted questions to the clerk, who feeds them through. We're elected councillors, so how much time do we need to give them?
Well,
Mr Bennett is the shortest.
no, but... Well, I don't think 5 minutes...
I'll second it.
There's another 2 people who wish to speak. Unless... did you have a comment to make? No. Okay, so there's 2 more speakers, so I would propose 10 minutes. Is that okay? All in favour? Thank you. Robert, I believe. Richard, sorry.
Good evening, everyone. It wouldn't have escaped your notice that an event held by the Town Council was a bit of a disaster the weekend. Yeah, I'm sure everyone would have seen the backlash that followed that. Can we have put on record that there will be an inquiry into that event, both the planning and the management, and that inquiry will be led by somebody independent to the organisation of that event, is the first point. And second point, more like towards the clerk, can you point me in the direction of the adopted policy for anti-bribery and corruption for the council, please? That's it.
Oh, thank you. Well, as has been already indicated on social media channels, a review will be taking place into the organisation of the fireworks display. Obviously, we share concerns and want to find out the reasons behind what took place. It's really important, so we're listening to everything that people are saying, and a full review will be taking place. I can't comment at this stage on the form that will take, because obviously it is this is the first time we have met since the event. It will be discussed briefly later on the agenda when we talk when we get to the agenda on risk management, which is coming up later, and the clerk will have more details then. But I don't know if you want to just come in at the moment, Aaron, just to if you've got anything to add to that.
Yeah, I think, Richard, it'd be useful if you write into me, so I've got your contact details, and I'll give you the answer about the anti-bribery.
Probably receive some legal correspondence tomorrow on the matter anyway. Held off this meeting tonight.
Okay.
Don't preempt anything.
Yeah.
You're probably going to see some in the coming days.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, better not comment in that case on that.
In terms of the anti-bribery and corruption policy,
That's the point.
That's-
So I can give you an answer. We do not have a policy.
you don't have a policy.
Your mic's not on. Yeah. Okay, thank you for coming in though. And so,
Sorry, I should add, however, all the way that we work is set out in standing orders, and that covers how we go around our procurement. Yeah.
okay, thank you.
Sorry?
So the code of conduct applies to all councillors,
Yeah.
which covers any allegations.
Thank you. And Mr. Bennett then, I'll hand over to you.
Thank you. I trust, Mr. Mayor, that the answer to the previous question will be deducted from the time I have. I have circulated preambles to my questions to try to speed things up. With regard to the bus shelter at the bottom of Oak Drive, what action will the Town Council take to have traffic passing the Oak Drive junction assessed for speed and the safety of pedestrians trying to cross the road and drivers trying to exit Oak Drive and turn right? What action will the council take to ensure that the shelter is in a fit and proper state to be used? It's got debris, old notices and unreadable timetables. If you want people to use buses, the shelters must be attractive and not reminiscent of a 1950s gentleman's urinal. Would the council also consider moving the existing shelter back to promote safety, preferably at the same time as creating a shelter on the opposite side of the road, as requested and agreed 2 years ago? With regard to the bid, I think you need some information. So what is the total current floor space for the retailing and service sectors? What is the current percentage of unused retail and service space? And how much of this has been empty or vacant for more than 1 year, 2 years, 3 years and 4 years? I note that the Barclays Bank planning application was last year. What will be done to address this issue of increasing the unused or temporarily used premises? What is the proportion of active retail and service space utilised as such to the proportion being used by charity shops? And what efforts have been or will be made to assess the general attractiveness of the shopping area in terms of graffiti, out-of-date notices, rubbish and maintenance of frontages and upper floors? And I fear for the future of taxi firms in Oswestry. The budget has been very hard in terms of increases in NI, fuel duty, and will the council, together with the bid, launch an urgent investigation with the trade to determine the potential impact of the increased taxation on these firms, and in concert with other councils lobby for a change should this be necessary following the collection of data? At the same time, it's held that there's already a dearth of suitably modified minibuses for the use of wheelchair passengers. Would the council consider adding this to its inquiries? And taxi drivers currently must travel to Shrewsbury to get their vehicles licensed. This wastes time and fuel. Would the council consider this activity as a locally derived function? I'm afraid with regard to the Memorial Hall, I must disagree with the previous speaker. This is a charity that has failed signally to produce reports to the Charity Commission for a number of years. It's also not recognised by HMRC for gift aid, which seems curious because it's a way of increasing your donations. And given that the charity could apply to a number of grant-making trusts, why hasn't it done so? I would suggest that the notice of motion be withdrawn until such time as an independent investigation has been carried out. But with the two sites that I brought to you, Site B is the more complex. The annual rental is £50,000 a year. With the current economic situation and the budget, I don't think it's likely to get that. But with imagination, a proper scheme could be produced using the planning powers of the Shropshire Council and possible government grant money to produce a social housing scheme, which would be of benefit. With regard to the last site, which is next to the Black Gate, this has already had planning permission refused. It would, I think, be an ideal site for a community garden and, of course, an opportunity to celebrate the history of the area, because that was one of the main entrances to the town, the old town, medieval times, the Black Gate. So called because it was also the exit through which condemned criminals were taken to execution. And, you know, it would be an opportunity to celebrate the history of this town and the area. And I think it would be enormously interesting to members of the public to reenact something of this kind in medieval costume. And I think people would really get behind it if the council were to organise a particular poll asking residents which of their local councillors they would like to see dangling from the end of a rope. Thank you.
A darker turn than I was expecting at the end. Thank you very much. Okay, well, there's a lot to digest there. Time doesn't really allow to go into an awful lot of detail there. Are there any that you can answer immediately, Aaron? Or,
I think there are a number of those not related necessarily to what the Town Council does, so it's very difficult for me to answer on behalf of the Council. With regard to the bus shelters, I think the Council is committed to invest in bus shelters, and the current plan is to replace the two on the post office and the one on Blackgate Street, and then consider all of the others and decide which ones are prioritised. Clearly, if it's dirty, sorry.
Not at all, please, go ahead.
If it's dirty, we'll make arrangements to have it cleaned over the next couple of days. That's not okay. In terms, and I think is that it? In terms of empty shops, we don't have that data. That data, Shropshire Council have that information, and I suggest contacting your local Shropshire Council about that. I think just in terms of the Town Council's investment in shop fronts, there's 16 shop fronts that received grants from the Town Council. 3 businesses received grants of £5,000 to restore empty shops, and it's on the agenda again this evening. So I think the council are taking steps. I'm happy to discuss taxis with a bid. There's a matter that this council has raised previously, and the matter about the land is an issue. If members want to bring it forward, then that's with you, not for officers, really.
okay, thank you. Right, okay, thank you very much to all the members of the public who've spoken. We'll move on now to item 2, which is apologies for absence, first of all.
So apologies for absence from Councillor Coburn, Councillor Chadwick, Councillor Stackhouse and Councillor Milner.
Thank you. I move we note those apologies. All in favour? Thank you. 2B is disclosure of councillors' interests in matters relating to the Code of Conduct. Looking round, please indicate now if you... yes.
Stand away from the Memorial Hall.
Due to what, sorry? Oh, right, okay. Thank you very much. Item 3 is the minutes, to seek approval of the attached minutes from meeting of council held on 9th of October 2024. I'll move, well, does anyone have any corrections or comments to make? Oh, I'll move we note those then, move we approve those minutes. All in favour? Thank you. Any against? Any abstentions? Have you got a decent pen? Thanks. Okay, item 4, to adopt the attached minutes from meeting of the Planning Committee of 18th of September 2024. Any corrections or comments? No? I'll move we adopt those then. All in favour? Thank you. Any against? One abstention. Thank you. Item 5, the subcommittees and working groups. We have A, which is the Market Performance and Liaison Panel of the 18th of September, the White Ribbon Steering Group of the 23rd of October, Budget and Policy Seminar of the 23rd of October. If anyone has any comments or questions or corrections on those, speak now, or I'll move on block. Councillor Davis.
Yeah, I'd just like to, I thought the budget and policy seminar was excellent. I think it opened everybody's eyes as to the money is what we're doing and where we're going. So thanks to the clerk for organising it. I thought it was a very good evening.
Thank you. Thanks, Councillor. Any more? No? I'll move we note those then. All in favour? Thank you. Okay, item 6 is to answer any questions in accordance with standing orders on which formal notice has been given.
I don't have any questions, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Item 7 then is standing orders. We have the amending standing orders attached at Appendix A for the Council to approve, because at the last meeting we voted to change our finishing time from 9 p.m. to 9:30. So it's been so moved. Seconded. All in favour? Any against? Any abstentions? Thank you. Item 8 then, we have our first notice of motion in the name of James Owen. Councillor Owen.
Perfect. Thank you. I'm not going to read out the full wording of the motion as it's fairly self-explanatory. Effectively just following reports and conversations with residents from my ward and across Oswestry, and doing a survey alongside Councillor Radford, I've proposed a couple of amendments to the existing traffic orders to try and alleviate some of the issues being faced and do keep coming back to us as issues from multiple residents. Firstly, the alteration of the parking bay in 2022, which, as far as I'm aware, wasn't commented on by OTC themselves. During the public consultation, it's now catching out the residents, as it took almost 2 years for the signs to change, which gives you the question of, was it really needed if they didn't even enforce it for 2 years? And therefore, reversing it also just ensures that we're not adding even more barriers to accessibility for residents that already do come up quite regularly from residents as well. Secondly, an extension of the on-street residence parking scheme. I do take on the notes from the speaker earlier today that it might not function as correctly as it should do. I feel like that's still something that should be worked on by Shropshire Council. The idea of the parking scheme itself, if it worked properly, is still one that people do aim to strive to have, and if more streets are getting them, then it would almost force a consultation on making sure that the ones that already exist do work as well in their own right. I'm not going to explain what a residence parking scheme is. And finally, just the double yellow lines at the Middleton Road junction. They do currently cut off very early from just as you turn around the corner, which does mean that cars have been known to park immediately around the corner. So as you're turning from the Gasworks Bridge into Ambleside Road, there's been several near misses where cars have just parked out of sight around the corner. And therefore, and it also on the opposite side parking, which narrows the pavement to a point where pedestrians and motorised vehicles can't get around without going completely on the opposite side of the road, crossing several times and getting around that way. So in, what's it called? Overall, I just propose that I move the proposal as written down and don't go on any more than that. So.
Thank you very much. Is there a seconder for the motion? Councillor Upton, thank you very much. Would you like to speak?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm seconding this proposal because what we have here seems to be an example of where local legislation is often having an inconvenience on residents of Oswestry for two separate reasons. We have one where a certain parking restriction is placed in an area of town which has a lot of businesses and residences, which could have a detrimental impact on how they operate because of the change in the parking zone. And then we have another one where local residents are impacted because there's not enough enforcement whatsoever. So, given that we are the first level of community governance, and given that this is a major priority for people that live in Oswestry, I think it's absolutely necessary that we have more consultative powers and involvement in these things when decisions are made. As a member of the public mentioned earlier, these were first introduced in certain areas by a local authority which was operated by the people for the people. So why shouldn't we continue that tradition?
Thank you very much. I've got Councillor Rose.
I'd like to move straight into amendment, suggesting amendment for, sorry,
Oh yeah.
suggesting amendment, mainly interested in the part two.
So I turn them all on at the side. All you have to do is press the talk button.
There you go.
There we go. Oh, no, it's gone off again. That's it.
It's obviously slightly on the edge. It's mainly about part two of the residents on street parking, and what I'd like to change it to, because although I think it's very valid and it's good of Councillor Owen to bring forward things that residents want, I'd like us to write to Shropshire Council to ask them to expedite phase 4 of their parking strategy framework part 2, which is the residents parking policy that was originally agreed by Cabinet on 11th of April 2018. Now, what they did in that meeting, they'd done a big consultation, and they basically decided that they didn't want to deal with streets individually anymore, that they wanted to do it on a whole town process. And they put the towns in an order of phase 1 was Shrewsbury, phase 2 was Ludlow, phase 3 was Bridgnorth, and phase 4 is Oswestry, and phase 5 is all the other towns in Shropshire. So they've managed to get through Shrewsbury, Ludlow, and then they got to Bridgnorth. They estimate it takes about a year to do each town, and they started Bridgnorth in March 22 for the first consultation. They did a second one in December, and then they did their third one in March 23. So indeed, they actually very well kept to target. They took them a year. And it was all going very well. They got the number of residents at the beginning who were interested. They actually they looked at the whole town, and they came up with 14 areas. Some of them are single streets, and some of them they decided to join 2 streets together. So, you know, if you got 50 parking places in street 1, 50 in part 2, you could park in either of them, just to sort of help people not feel there's loads of spaces around the corner and they're stuck in that one. So basically, they looked at all the knock-on effects of, if we put residents park in this street, everyone just goes to the one slightly farther out. And that's what seems to happen. I think it's happened in Ferrers Road with cars going into the next street. So that's why they wanted to extend it in the Ross Street area, that sort of Trinity area. And it's happened in other places. So at the time of this acceptance of the strategy, there were 25 streets in Oswestry requested residents parking. One of them's actually Morder. I don't know why they just put it under Oswestry, because there wasn't another Morder one. 3 of them were just wanting amendments. Those are 3 of the ones that already have something, wanted it amended. Sometimes people have it running for a while and then they think, actually, I'd rather just have it running till 6 o'clock, because after 6 no one's trying to park here for their work, and we'd rather it be a bit more free for our visitors and that kind of thing. So 3 of them were, but so basically there are 21 already on that list, and Ambleside Road isn't one of them. But that doesn't mean, now that they've gone for this whole town approach, any new ones can come in as well, and they'll look at the whole thing. So I just want to press them to actually get on with it, because what's happened with Bridgnorth, after the year, they'd had the 3rd consultation, and basically residents then decided they didn't want it after all. They didn't want to pay £100, because that's what it's going to cost now, because they have to pay, they estimated £30-something to be able to enforce it. So there's no point having a scheme if you can't enforce it. So in Oswestry, actually, most of them are free at the moment, but the residents there were paying 50. They didn't want to increase to 100. Also, some residents had 2 parking permits, and some of them were going to be reduced to only being allowed 1, so they didn't like that either. And there were lots of other, just when it finally came, because you have the consultations, but when the actual plans were finalised, that's when people could really see what was going to happen, and they didn't like it so much. But also, the portfolio holder at the time, he decided to pause the scheme because, as well as all the people who were against it, also they were planning to develop the High Street and Bridge North, which I still don't think's happened. So they thought that would impact all the schemes. So they wanted to wait until they'd done that. So that's why it's on hold. So my argument is that was phase 3. We're phase 4. That's on hold. Can they now get on with dealing with the whole of Oswestry? I just want to quote just a couple of things from the
Very
quickly from the policy. Sorry. So one part of the scheme, they said residence parking scheme should not be introduced and should be avoided, with the majority of residents have off-street parking. And unfortunately, the Ambleside Road and Green Bank, they all have off-road parking. In fact, they all have a garage and off-street parking. So they do, you know, so that would exclude them from being considered. But when the whole town approaches, maybe different, but that's what the policy is at the moment, that they wouldn't be quite reasonably. All the other streets that are waiting are York Street and streets that don't have any off-street parking. They're literally reliant completely on the streets. So I just wanted to mention that as part of it. So that's basically it, that they want to do the holistic approach, look at the whole thing, and that February 22 is the last time I've seen an email from one of the Shropshire officers who at that time still confirmed that's what they're trying to do, and they were hoping to get going in the summer, but that is, 2 years ago, so still not happened. So that would be my amendment, that we don't look at the one street, that we look at the whole lot.
Getting the whole town approach.
And push them to do it, because it's just increasing. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Is there a seconder for the amendment? Councillor Maguire? And so I'll go back to the original mover of the motion. Do you accept the amendment?
I'm happy to accept the amendment. I feel like we should look at the whole of Oswestry. Again, I was focusing on one that came to me personally, and I went through to show that residents are looking out for it, and that's why I wanted to bring their views across to council to at least have it out in the public view. And I feel like being able to allow the rest of Oswestry to have that opportunity as well is well within what I aim for the motion. So we don't need to, if that becomes the substantive.
Thank you. Yeah, okay, thank you. I had Councillor Kerr. Did you wish to speak, or were you going to second?
In a second, I'm happy to go to vote on that amended motion.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Price wishing to speak.
I think also, if I remember right, bought in on that particular time, there was the element of purchasing a T-bar to protect your drive, the solid white line with ends on. And that came under the permit policy as well, I believe, if I remember right. So they've got the opportunity now to purchase that.
Okay, might be worth letting residents know that that could be an option to protect their driveways. But we have an amended motion from Councillor Owen. It's been seconded. If no one else wishes to speak.
So just for my clarity,
just to summarise, I believe editing the point 2 on the motion to instead request that they expedite the option 4 of the parking, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically bring in the Oswestry parking plan forward to make sure that it happens in a timely manner.
As per the details that Councillor Rose can, I think it was
I need just to clarify whether this amendment replaces the whole motion or part of the motion, because I'm not clear.
I understood it was the part of the motion,
Okay.
part 2.
In which case, I wish to speak on part 1 then, please.
Oh, okay. Thank you then, Councillor
Now
Kerr.
that's become the substantive motion.
Yes.
We can have a further amendments to it. I'll explain what I've got to say, and then we can talk. I'll make an amendment to it. So I appreciate it. It's not your area as a town councillor. This is a consultation that was done, and Mike Isher was involved in it. I was involved in it. back in 2022, it was led by BID, and BID didn't lead it because they woke up one morning and said, let's make life difficult for the traders on Beatrice Street. It was the traders on Beatrice Street who came to BID and said, life is difficult. Life is difficult because somebody parks their blooming great van right in front of my dress shop and nobody can see my dress shop. And they shouldn't be there for that long, but they are there for that long, and parking enforcement is so weak that that's having a real impact on my business. And there was also a problem that the butchers opposite was having deliveries, and those delivery vehicles, having nowhere else to park, there being no loading bay in that area, were parking on the zigzags. And that's illegal. It wasn't being ticketed because it's not a civil offence, but it's a criminal offence. And if the police caught up with the people who were delivering, then that could be a criminal offence. And that's obviously was having, or potentially have a serious impact on that butchers as well. So that was a consultation which BID proposed to Shropshire Council, and Shropshire Council consulted myself and Mike as our local councillors, because the road divides our two areas as it happens. I've got the right-hand side, I think you've got the left-hand side, I can't really quite remember. And we made some, we challenged, as you did, is that will this have an impact on businesses? Shropshire Council took all that into account and consulted back with BID. There was a consultation period that went out, all those views that were taken into consideration. You're right, I don't think the town council gave a view at the time, but all businesses had plenty of opportunities to give it a time. Obviously, BID gave their views, and yes, we all thought it was going to be implemented quickly. It wasn't. I do agree, it's very unfortunate it takes 2 years to implement, but that's the situation, and it will probably only get worse in the future. If you think Shropshire Council was short of money 2 years ago, by God, it's short of money now. So what's been the situation since? Well, I've just actually got some up-to-date data from the traffic team, and during the month of October, they issued exactly 10 tickets for that location, of which only 2 have been challenged, and neither of those challenges have said they were visiting local businesses. So nobody's challenged a ticket on the basis that they were ticketed for visiting a local business. If you're a disabled person, you've got a blue badge, you can park in the loading bay. All blue badge holders can park in the loading bay, so they're perfectly able, disabled people, to access both the shops. If you haven't got a blue badge, there are 2 more loading bays just next door to it. As you know this, we made one bay as a loading bay. Next door, there's then 40-minute bays, as there always were. So there's the option to park there as well. This loading bay doesn't, of course, just serve those 2 shops. There are other shops in the row who all need a loading bay if they are going to trade successfully. So I think the view is we need to give it a bit longer. Even if you wanted to ask now for all the money to be spent on redoing all the traffic orders, redoing all the consultations, repainting all the lines, I expect it would take 4 years this time rather than 2 years. Because frankly, the situation of Shropshire Council is such that discretionary work, and this is discretionary, is extraordinarily difficult to get done now. There's like a star chamber looking at every pound that's spent on something that's not statutory, that they don't have to do, and it'll have to pass a rigid test before it's ever approved. So the prospect of this actually being done. The other thing I've done is to speak to the traffic warden, the civil enforcement officers. I've spoken to their bosses, but I've spoken to the person on the ground and been reassured that they don't just issue tickets the moment their car parks there. You're allowed to park there to load. It's a loading bay. It's not restricted to vans or commercial vehicles. You can be loading from your car. If you've got a heavy load of bride's dresses, perhaps not, but a heavy load of meat to load, you're perfectly entitled to park there as an ordinary member of the public and load. What you can't do is park there and pop into town and for 5 minutes and come back. You'll be ticketed for that. But that's, that's the way loading bays have to operate. So I think it's just premature, perhaps, to seek to change something that's only been just introduced a few weeks ago. Clearly, the parking supervisor I've got here is of the view that loading bays should remain and be beneficial to all businesses. He tells me he's had conversations last week with BID and they support it remaining. So I think if we really wanted to consider further, you need to hear from BID and from the parking supervisor, I'm not a parking expert, on why the issues, sometimes you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. I'm sure if you go back, you'll find there are equal problems that we had in the past, we're going flitting backwards and forwards ever more. So I'm proposing that we leave the situation as it is.
Okay, so your amendment is essentially to remove item 1 from the motion.
I think we could review it in about a year's time when it's had a chance to bed down. You get these, when you change regulations, you're going to get people caught out because they're not used to it. That will happen any time you make an improvement. So I'm fairly happy to have it reviewed in about a year's time. It's had a chance to bed down.
So to amend part 1 to review the loading bay on Beatrice Street, to see how it's operating and whether the situation is working in about 12 months' time.
To request a review.
To request a review from Shropshire Council. Okay, does the amendment have a seconder? Councillor Maguire? I'll just go to the original mover. Do you accept the amendment?
I don't. I do highlight that you're not allowed to negate a motion by using an amendment, which this does in effect negate my item part of it. I think the two parts are clear between having the Ambleside Road and the Beatrice Street. This would get rid of part of my motion. So I feel like understanding orders, the whole motion should be voted on under one go rather than separating it out.
Right, okay. Councillor Maguire?
Obviously I second that because both Councillor Kerr and myself have had correspondence with Shropshire Council and the businesses within the area. It does appear to be that a lot of the issues in that area are residents that are parking there or people going shopping in town and leaving their cars for long periods of time, which would it would also stop any loading or unloading or customers coming to and from shops. So this is the only way, from what I can see and from what the correspondence from businesses and from Shropshire Council, it's the only way that you can stop this from happening.
Thank you.
Procedural point, Chair.
Yes, Councillor.
Point of order. I think my understanding of the situation is that the motion was changed. We agreed that changed, that became a substantive motion, and now it's been amended again, which it can be. Once a motion's been amended, it can be amended again before it's put to the vote. So it's not the negating of the motion, it's just a further amendment.
Well, Councillor Rose.
I understand what James is saying, that you can't negate a part of the motion, but I think as we're saying that it would be reviewed in a year, it's not negating, it's not saying don't do it at all. I'm wondering whether you actually can request now that it's looked at in a year. I think it's quite normal that they do that. Is that something that we can do? Request now that it's looked at in October, for the beginning of October when it was introduced.
Yeah. My interpretation of the rules of debate, the relevant part says an amendment is a proposal to remove or add words to a motion. It shall not negate the motion. So it comes down to whether or not the amendment would negate the motion. Now, the motion has been amended once, so now becomes the substantive motion. As I see it, changing it from asking for a revocation to asking for a review in 12 months' time does not negate the motion. The motion still stands. It's a change from a revocation to a review. That's how I interpret that. Now, does that interpretation, as chair, does my interpretation stand, or?
It's ultimately your decision when it comes to rules of debate at meetings. I think, you know, obviously there's been an amendment to the original motion, so yeah, I concur with your logic, but ultimately it's for members to determine and vote on, isn't it?
Right, okay. Yeah, Councillor, sorry. Did you want to? Okay, Councillor Price.
Well, if there are irregularities in parking, I believe the waiting times, as Duncan's quite rightly pointed out, I think the times are 15 minutes. It's 40 minutes. Oh, that's right, yeah. If they give you 15 minutes to return to the vehicle. Yeah, right. So it's 15 minutes. So if there are irregularities in parking, I suggest we just write to Shropshire Council and ask for the enforcement officers to monitor more often, frequently, to move people on. That would solve all problems around the table. I'm surprised that it actually isn't on this.
Thank you. Okay, so an amendment has been seconded. I believe we now need to vote on that as to whether that becomes the substantive motion. So, all in favour of the amendment to Part 1 to not ask for a revocation of the restriction now, but to request a review takes place in 12 months' time, and the basis of that could form the reason for us to then request a revocation at that point. sorry. Councillor Owen, did you want to speak on that?
Instead of 12 months, could we bring it forward to the start of the next council in May next year? So we'd be doing it 6 months instead of 12.
Councillor Kerr has moved an amendment. I don't know if you can suggest an amendment to the amendment until we've...
We're getting very messy, aren't we?
Yeah, it is. The amendment is as is. Councillor Price, did you want to speak again?
Yes,
Just
and
briefly.
into that more frequent monitoring by enforcement officers. Okay?
Okay. Well, I'd have to take that separately. So all in favour of the amendment as proposed by Councillor Kerr? All against? 3 against. Any abstention? Oh, 4 against. Okay, so that amendment has been accepted by Council. It now becomes the substantive motion. So, unless anyone has anything new to add, I think we should move to the vote on the substantive motion, which is now to request a review in 12 months' time is carried out by Shropshire Council into the working of that restriction. Then part 2 is to ask for the whole town resident permit scheme, which was voted on by Shropshire Council in 2018, to actually move forward and take place, as has been promised for several years now. And part 3, which is left as it is in the original motion. Does anyone have anything really important or new to say? Okay, in that case we'll move to the vote. All in favour? And that's unanimous. Thank you very much, councillors. Okay. We then move to the next notice of motion in the name of Councillor Jay Moore. I'll hand over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't think I could speak more eloquently about the value of the Memorial Hall than Mr. Newman did when he spoke at the start of the meeting. So we all know the benefits of the Memorial Hall, Mr. Mayor. I know that you work very closely with the team there, and your charity is benefits. So I know you're more than aware. The process that's been going on at the Memorial Hall over the last week is such that we've uncovered a few issues there while we've been working, a couple which electricians have had a look over and have considered them to be quite urgent issues. Although Mr. Newman is working his way through quite a backlog of issues with the Memorial Hall and trying to bring those, as he said, bring them all up to as high a standard as possible. This is one that I feel is incredibly pressing, because it could result in potentially a loss of income for the hall and loss of use of the hall. My feeling is that the council is best positioned to try and help with this and keep the hall functional and get this work done in the quickest way possible. So to that, I suggest that we... Sorry, I've lost my place in here. I suggest that we will move money from reserves to top up the grants budget in order to commission the survey to go ahead, and then the actual works itself can come from capital expenditure. Very much like we did with one of Councillor Kerr's motions, I believe at the last meeting it was, or possibly the one before, with the urgency to get things done at the... sorry, it's okay.
Sorry,
No, right, it's okay. I'm good. Yeah, okay.
Apologies.
That's okay. So the urgency of getting things done at the food bank was obviously something that we needed to bring forward and move quickly. So in the same spirit of that, I feel that trying to get the Memorial Hall to go through the usual grants application, which is obviously then going to not be decided until further into December, is something that we can't really afford to allow them to do. So I hope that councillors will support this motion and give the Memorial Hall the help they need after a great amount of work has been done so far this week to improve things. This is going to be a way to ensure that everything is safe and functional there.
Okay, does the motion have a seconder? Councillor Upton? Yeah, and would you wish to speak?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I am going to second this motion because, in addition to Councillor Moore's assertion that this is a vital community asset, I would like to assert myself that for over 120 years, Memorial Hall has been part of Oswestry's rich tapestry. We have many of these, such as Kyglass Park, the Castle Ruins, even Oswald's Well, Brynhaford Brigunton. So the fact that this fine building has served generations of Oswestrians for over a century, I think it's time we served it. And if it means giving this small gesture to help it bring it up to speed so that it can continue to serve us for another century, then so be it.
Thank you very much. I've Councillor Kerr. I do have a question of my own.
I'm sorry, I'm struggling with this. We've had no figure mentioned, so I don't know what we're talking about. Is it £10, £10,000, £100,000? I mean, before we actually consider making any assessment or even know where it comes from, we need to know what actual sum we're talking about. I also have to say, and it's unfortunate we end up talking about Memorial Hall, which I think is a slightly confidential matter in public forum, but we've started now. Electrical safety certificates are a statutory requirement. It's a criminal offence to have a public building without an electrical safety certificate. So we're not dealing with something which is sort of optional here. This is fundamental. The building, frankly, shouldn't be opened if it hasn't got an electrical safety certificate issued within the last 5 years. And that's a definitive yes or no, it has. So I'm all for helping Memorial Hall. I think Paul would be the first person to say that. I've had many frequent conversations with him. You know, as an authority, we do have good capital resources, so any improvement in the Memorial Hall, we are in a position to help with. Electrical safety certificates are not a capital measure. Doesn't matter where it would have to come from our revenue, so we'd have to find it from our revenue budget. And I'd have to say we'd have to look as to why the Memorial Hall is not able to meet its statutory obligations and resources it has. It has been said, and I'm afraid I looked up the same information myself on the Charity Commission's register. For the last 4 years, it's not reported its data. So the latest data we've got is for the year ending June 2022. We've just got the gross income and expenditure for that year. I have no idea what their level of reserves are. We could be sitting here, they could have hundreds of thousands of pounds in reserves, they could have nothing in reserves, they could have a massive debt. We would need to have that. We're spending public money here, and we have to justify it to other bodies. So where we're giving it to an organisation, we have a grants programme which does that due diligence check. It wouldn't take 5 minutes for an application to be put forward for that programme, and we could have had it tonight if it had been put forward. But we do need that data to make a decision, and we also need to know what is the cost of the electrical safety certificate. It shouldn't be difficult to identify that, but if there's fears that that electrical safety certificate will lead to a further programme of extensive works, then we're either going to need a second application or we're going to need some estimate of what those works could be. But I say again, I'm actually very keen on helping the Memorial Hall. I think the heating is long overdue for complete replacement, and I think the kitchen, personally, could be greatly extended. That would help the profitability of the hall going forward, and those are matters we have the capital to assist with. But we are very short of revenue, and we've seen that in the budget discussions we've had recently. So it is much more difficult to find revenue for things like electrical safety certificates. So I'm not sure we can proceed with a motion that says give us some money but doesn't say how much money. So I don't know I don't know how the clerk could possibly implement that, because he wouldn't know where to take the money from or what money is being taken.
Okay, thank you. Right, Councillor Owen I had next, but would it be better for the mover to?
Yeah, I think I probably just in terms of the money. Clearly, we can't agree on an undisclosed sum of money. So if it's a grant, you need to have a discussion about that. Councillor Moore has asked me the question: how much did it cost for the electrical certificate inspection at the centre? And that was £1,700. So provided in with that information, but obviously the Memorial Hall would have to get a quote to give us an accurate figure.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Moore.
Thank you. Yeah, so the discussions, I had those discussions with the clerk following the original motion going forward. So yeah, he did come back to me with a figure of £1,700, which I think would probably cover a building the size of the Memorial Hall comfortably compared to a building the size of the centre. So that was the, and I probably didn't say, so this is my error, I probably didn't say to the clerk directly that I wanted him to amend the wording of my motion after we had that conversation. I think we just kind of had that conversation and I've negated to do that. So that's my mistake there, councillors, I apologise. And the second part of the motion here, it does say that the cost implications from that survey to be brought back to council for the amount to be signed off on before works can commence. I'm in no way coming here before council suggesting that we have a survey for an undisclosed amount of money to just go out later. That's not what my motion doesn't say. That yes, I missed the adding the £1,700 to that, but the rest of it for all the works there is clear as day in the motion. So I don't think that's, and I also think it's not. Councillor Kerr doesn't know whether or not there is a up-to-date electrical survey. So, well, there is work there that is out of date that needs looking at. What the situation is with the electrical survey at the moment is that it is, even if it is valid, it is certainly not. It is not covering the issues that we have uncovered here, and it needs redoing. So that's what the work is for, and a full survey will give us the full. Sorry, Councillor Cook, can you not huff while I'm trying to speak? Sorry, I forget that you think it's your chambers, but I'm allowed to speak while I'm here.
Hang on. I mean,
Good boy.
we can express feelings. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
but you know.
I'm not having people huffing at me while I'm trying to speak, Mr. Mayor. Sorry.
Well, I don't know. These aren't
It's distracting
Councillor Kerr's chambers. These aren't Councillor Moore's chambers. You're speaking. He's reacting, sighing, or whatever. But let's not fall out over.
Let's let people speak.
Let's keep it to the
which is what
the matter under
what-
discussion. Yeah.
Exactly.
So,
as I was saying, the survey, we don't know exactly what the situation is as far as the extent of the works that needs doing. I personally and an electrician have been there all week, and we have uncovered different issues which we know require immediate attention. The way that the electrician, the qualified electrician, has suggested that we move forward on this is to have a survey done of the building, and then those works will come back there. I don't think there's anybody in this chamber who can argue that the electrician's recommendation isn't something that's sensible to follow in this, and that's exactly what I'm suggesting we do, is we commission that survey, and then with that number comes back to council and we discuss that number and decide whether or not we can, from our capital expenditure, help fund the works that are needed desperately at the Memorial Hall.
okay, thank you very much. I have Councillor Jones.
Yeah, I have sympathy with the Memorial.
That's it.
A
You're
lovely
on.
building, but again, I'm afraid Councillor Moore's trying to short circuit the system that we've got in place. We've got processes, and I think we need to stop this now and ask him to come back with a proper figure and approach it through the grant system, or any other way the town clerk can see it happen. I'd like to see it happen, but it's got to be done properly. Due diligence. Okay.
Okay.
So I
thank you.
propose we scrap the motion, or whatever.
Well, that
Yeah.
can only happen through a vote, really.
Well, I propose.
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Rose. And I've got Councillor Owen.
When is the next grants session?
So round two finishes at the end of November, and decisions will be made in December.
So we've got a...
Your mic's gone off. That's it. Just press it. Yeah.
I'm just wondering, if there's any way of speeding the application through. This is the last month, is it?
It
If we
has to
haven't
come
got
through
any
council.
ready now, we haven't got any applications in, we have got some money left that would cover that.
It's the due diligence of having the information provided for inspection, and then a full decision-making
But that
process.
could be done in the next couple of days, possibly, if they've got the details. I just also wanted to check, you had this approximate 1,700 for the centre. Was that for just the certification that you do every 5 years, or was that a full survey, with a full work survey, as it's called?
So it was the EICHR, so electrical installation you know,
Yeah.
well, that's what you need doing, and you know, we've got one on each of our properties. So and we have that done every 5 years.
I just wondered whether that was enough for the Memorial Hall to have that served, and we're really looking for something to actually then say that is a problem you've got to do something about. Yeah. Or is it the same thing? Okay.
Yeah. Okay, Councillor Owen.
Thank you. I think it is rich of several members to bring up due diligence a meeting after they completely ran shod on it for their own project. It's a matter of, it's exactly the same situation. We've been given an amount now of £1,700 that does need doing urgently to ensure that the works do take place in a timely manner. Obviously you haven't amended the motion, so I'll propose that we do amend to give a budget of 2,000, but also on the condition that a grant for application is received within the next 7 days, that can then be with the delegated down to the clerk to accept. It's a matter of, that gives the, if that isn't that's an option that we can do, therefore it's a matter of that's what I'm proposing. Another scenario is that we host, we can call meetings whenever we want. We call a meeting for 7 days' time just to propose this on the agenda, where we have a grant application in front of us where we can sign it off. And that's a matter of, that's another way forward. We can't keep coming up with barriers of why to delay things for a month without coming up with the solutions that are in front of us. So I will propose that we delegate the power to the clerk, but if councillors want that decision, we instead host a meeting in 7 days to go through this grant application.
Yeah, the clerk does want to come in on the delegation.
Yeah, it's just been clear what the delegation allows me to do. So if, for example, the information isn't made available, you know, then do I make a decision or don't I make a decision? So I think you need to be clear.
Yeah. So can I just?
Is it just receipt of an application? Or
It's a matter, if you receive the application and you actually receive it and you feel that in the council's interest that that application goes ahead, then you proceed. If it's not in the interest of the council, we decline that indication. And acting on behalf of the council, which is the clerk's responsibility, he can make that decision.
Thank you. Is that amendment seconded? Thank you, Councillor Radford. And does the mover accept the amendment?
Does the clerk have to accept it as well before we
Sorry, Miss.
Yeah.
You
but
go ahead,
I'm just.
if you want to say.
I'm just.
No, okay, fine.
Is
Yes.
the amendment accepted?
Yeah, because I left out the other
Okay.
part. So, but yeah.
So the substantive motion now is that a budget of up to £2,000 for part one is agreed, and that providing a grant application is received within 7 days, the clerk has the delegated power to agree to fund that work.
Yeah,
and that all the paperwork is obviously in order.
Yeah.
I do have Councillor Kerr and then Councillor Davis.
I'll put a point of order to that, Mr. Mayor, if we can. So we've got obviously a lot of business to get through, and obviously I know that quite a lot of councillors have spoken several times in a row. Really, we're supposed to speak one time on this, or point of order.
Not post-amendment. The amendment's been made, so I feel that people should now be allowed to speak on that because it's a substantive change to the motion.
Of course, but to save us going around the table over and over again, just to make you aware of where we are time-wise.
I understand. Councillor Kerr.
Yeah, a couple of things. I think it's completely unfair to ask the clerk to determine this issue. For instance, if the application comes in which will require financial data from the latest years and discloses there's a very considerable amount of money in reserves, what's the clerk do? Does he form a view on that? Does he not? How much money? I think we are also adding another load of workload to the clerk, and we've all said around this table that we are worried about over too much workload for the clerk. So I think we need to go for the other option, which is to have a meeting ourselves, and we need to make that decision ourselves, not dump it on the clerk and then criticise him wherever we think he didn't do it as we would have done it. If we want to give money to Memorial Hall, we decide that. The reason I was reacting earlier is this is very serious. We've had a gentleman come in who's got very serious concerns, clearly, about an event that we held last week. we need to deal with that. We don't want to compound that by getting ourselves involved in a situation where if there isn't an electrical safety certificate, then insurance is probably invalidated, because insurance is, he's nodding his head at me, insurance is always only available if you have an accurate electrical safety certificate, and there's a danger we start getting too involved in it, they start claiming against us as the people who are providing that work rather than the Memorial Hall. So it is very, very, very important that this is done properly, but I would urge, and I asked, I mean, Councillor Owen actually proposed that and went down the other route, I'd asked him to withdraw his motion and go for the other idea, which to organise a special meeting. I mean, if you ask for the application now, you can then organise a meeting as soon as you can, you know, with the requisite number of days after that comes in. It can be sometime in the next 8 or 10, I don't, you know, as soon as possible, basically, but dependent on when the application comes in. And I'm more than happy to be here and more than happy to approve it. But I think we need to do the work, not give it to the clerk. I think it's completely unfair.
Okay. Right, okay. Mr. Newman, I have 2 questions for you. Would you care to just take this seat and press the button on the microphone? Number 1, would you be able to put a grant application together in the next 7 days?
Yes, we could do that.
And number 2, what was it, Aaron?
Do you have the necessary information?
Do you have the necessary information for the grant application? All the financial details?
Yeah, can I comment specifically on the financial information? Because I've seen that it's been distributed and I didn't have that insight. I mentioned governance issues earlier. I'll be brief on this. One of the governance issues that I've picked up in taking on a role for the charity is that they haven't filed reports or finances for the last 2 years. It's 2 years. I've dealt with the accountants over the last month, and the 2 sets of accounts that had not been filed, I've now accumulated. I have them. They show the improving but not solvent position for the Memorial Hall, and those will be filed. I've, as recently as last week, got access to the Charity Commission website so that I can personally file the trustee reports for those 2 years with the finances. So that information is available to be shared with the council, and I fully understand the reason for asking for it, so I'm happy with that, happy to share.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Paul. Yeah. Okay, right. The bit I'm not happy about is the delegated powers. So I would like to propose an amendment that we do agree, in principle, the budget of £2,000, but that rather than delegate that to Aaron, that providing that grant application is received within the 7 days, that I will call the extraordinary meeting of the council to discuss and check it over, do the due diligence and make a decision. Is that I need a seconder. Okay. All right, lovely. Okay, so Councillor Davis did want to speak. Yes, sorry, Councillor.
Yeah, a couple of things. This seems to be very, very rushed. I don't mind the money for the survey, but we should have 2 quotes, at least 2 quotes for surveys. You can get an electrician in there that can say anything on it if he thinks he's going to get the work. So I think you should have 2 separate quotes, definitely. And I think that should come back to council before we move any further. I'm not happy with it, and if we're going to vote and give £2,000, if them quotes come in cheaper, which should be something in there that we have the money back, they just don't have the £2,000 like we've been caught out in the past where we've given money. So I think if the quotes come in, and for whatever the price they were, and then we agree it and we pay that quote, this is getting very, very, I'm not against Elfin Hall like everybody says, but this is not the way to go around it. We've got to be proper on this.
Okay, I feel like the clerk has more to say.
No, and I think so. Yeah, I think challenge Paul is with the application. With the application, we do generally ask for for how do you get the basis of your costs, perhaps obtaining a couple of quotes from local electricians as part of that. I know one's already been in contact with me. I think that should be relatively straightforward, and happy to give you details of the council's electrician as well.
Okay, so there should be a minimum of 2 quotations with the grant application. Okay. All in favour of the motion? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. All against? 1, 2. And abstentions? 1. Okay, thank you very much. That is carried. So
We voted for another meeting.
we voted for another meeting, basically.
That'll be called by the Mayor, as it is an extraordinary meeting of the Council, which is, you have powers to do so.
Yeah. Yeah. Wasn't intending to use them during my term, but there we go. Okay, thank you very much. Item 9 is the future Oswestry Group. To note, Appendix C, the draft minutes of the meeting held on the 12th of September. I'll move we note. Seconded, thank you. All in favour? Thank you. I think that one was unanimous. 10, the Oswestry Area Committee. We have a vacancy on this. We send 2 representatives normally, but Councillor Rose has stood down, so we're looking for a volunteer. Councillor Owen?
I wish to volunteer myself, if that's okay with the rest of council.
Thank you. Does somebody second? Councillor Rose has seconded Councillor Owen. Councillor Jones?
I'd like to see Rosie Radford take the role as deputy as the vice chair.
Yeah.
If you could honour to do that, and that would give her a little bit of insight into what is going on in the area.
Okay. Councillor Radford, you have been nominated. Well, it's a nomination rather than a motion. Well, normally the process is not to make a motion. It's to your words were that you volunteer. We normally, get a range of nominations if there's more than one person willing to do it. And
Nominating herself is better than nominating another council to make them feel
hang on.
I just feel
Okay,
it's encouraging a bullying behaviour where you're trying to put people on the spot to make a decision on whether to nominate themselves.
Well,
I've chosen to nominate.
hang on, your microphone's gone off. Right, yes, you've nominated yourself, but someone else could have nominated you. That's normal, quite often people speak to each other beforehand and say, would you nominate me, would you second me? But
that's where I feel like that was being bullying, and that you've tried
well,
have that conversation before.
I don't know if
with the council, and then in the meeting, then
I don't know what's perhaps you've got one with a battery that's...
It's just, as soon as somebody else presses it somewhere else, it will cut off.
Yeah, please don't press your buttons until you've been asked to speak.
I'm just
but
bringing
procedurally...
I'm bringing an issue under the Code of Conduct that I feel it's improper that a councillor has put another councillor on the spot without speaking to them beforehand to nominate them. Well, they haven't had that conversation.
But that's not against the rules as far as I'm aware, so I'm not sure that an accusation of that nature can be made when nothing outside of the rules has been done. We're speaking about intentions that we can't know, and now I don't know where to go with this.
So just in terms of nominations, just in the process, voting on appointments. So people can be nominated. More than one person can be nominated. I think what it didn't need, Councillor Rose, was a seconder. Okay, so one, and then we go to the vote. That's the process. Anything else? The issues that you raised as a point of order, fair enough to raise them. Need to be heard by the mayor. If you then wish to follow that up with a complaint, then that is your right, absolutely right as a councillor. But I do feel that Councillor Radford is here and perhaps should be. Actually, has been asked whether she wishes to speak.
Well, yes, I would like to offer Councillor Radford the opportunity to speak now.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Jones. I think it's a really good idea, and as Deputy Mayor, it would be really useful to be able to get some insight So I am more than happy, dependent upon volume of meetings. So if somebody could clarify numbers of meetings and frequency, etc., I would be grateful.
Yes. So the next meeting is on the 6th of January, I believe, and
Quarterly.
so quarterly, so about 4 meetings a year. Okay.
I'm more than happy to be nominated, but equally, if there is somebody else in the room that would also like to do it, I'm more than happy to go to the vote.
Okay, well, we have now two nominations. Are there any other nominations? No? Okay, so in order of nomination, we'll take votes for Councillor Owen first. All in favour of Councillor Owen becoming our second rep on the Oswestry Area Committee? 1, 2, 3. I'll vote James, so 4. And all in favour of Councillor Radford? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so Councillor Radford, you've been elected to be our second representative on the Oswestry Area Committee. Many congratulations. Okay. Item 11 is enabling remote attendance and proxy voting at local authority meetings. So, yeah, I'll bring the clerk in, save time.
Yeah, so just to inform you that there is an ongoing consultation. Currently, the council do not have a choice of whether they meet remotely or not. This does give you the choice. But I encourage you all to take part in the consultation individually, because it's about your views and your opinions and how you would like meetings to happen. Clearly, the council may wish to express a view and delegate powers to me to respond on your behalf. I think I've made it clear my view is that fundamentally now you do not have a choice. It doesn't mean that, and having the choice doesn't mean that you have to meet remotely. It means that you can if you so wish. I think for me, I would encourage you to consider that carefully. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Councillor Wadey.
I've just got a question. If it was a case, say, for example, we obviously we have teams and things like that. If it was a meeting that was called here, but we could only attend remotely, would that cover that as well, or is this just one or the other?
That would be for the council to determine. I'll be honest, I'm not a fan of hybrid meetings. I find them very difficult to work in. However, the council could choose to go down that route if it so wished, and then we'd obviously have to put all the bells and whistles in place to enable us to do that. But currently, you don't have a choice to make the rules about how you meet. This would enable you to do it.
Okay, Councillor Rose.
I know hybrid meetings are difficult, but I'm slightly in favour of them. I'm just remembering when we were coming out of COVID, and every time you had a little cough, you felt you shouldn't come because you might be infecting people, and you were well enough to attend a meeting, but so it would enable councillors at times who miss for some reason like that to be able to attend on screen. So, but you do need to have them in public, because you do need to have the public to be able to attend. So we have to have an in-person one definitely as well, I think.
Okay. I mean, this item, does anyone wish the clerk to respond on behalf of the council, or is everyone happy just to respond as they wish as individuals? As individuals? Yeah, I think that's the feeling in the room, isn't it? Sorry, did you have your hand up, Councillor?
No, I was just going to say, when COVID was on, I was chairing Wickington, and I did find it quite difficult to chair a meeting if it's all on remote. You don't get the feel or the participation of the other people in the room, what you're discussing. It's very kind of blank, especially if you're talking budgets or money. They're more difficult to run. That was just my point on it. If you're a councillor, attending a meeting is part of what you do. If you want to stop at home and log in, well, you shouldn't be a councillor really, unless there's a specific reason for that.
Yeah, it gives us the option, though, doesn't it, to structure a meeting and give people the ability, if they are ill or whatever. And I happen to like them because you get to be nosy and see people's decor. But yeah. So okay. So it seems that we're happy to respond to that as individuals, Aaron, but I would encourage everyone to do so, because I think it would be a good thing for this to be an option that we can then we then have the power to decide for ourselves. So I move that we note that item. All in favour? Thank you. Okay, item 12, the Law Commission consultation on burials. Would you like to come in on this one again, Aaron?
Yeah, you should be pleased I haven't presented the document to you for reading, because it's extensive, but I think what it highlights is significant issues with the legislation around burial law in this country. I think it's very clear that lots and lots of councils and lots of places are struggling with land for burial, and the law around things like exhumation, reusing graves is patchy. So I think what they're asking for is some insight into that. I think we should feed into it. I'm not sure we can answer all of the questions, but I think, yeah, because it's a matter of policy or opinion, I need your authority to do that.
Okay, thank you. I think this is probably a good one to delegate, as is the suggestion. The clerk is asking for delegated responsibility here, so I propose that we do as asked. Is there a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Froggatt. All in favour? Unless anyone wishes to speak. Thank you. All against? Any against? Any abstentions? One abstention. Thank you.
Mr.
Yes.
Just in terms of, I think we've got members of the public here still waiting to hear specific items.
Yeah.
So I think it would be prudent if, I think, Richard, it's about the firework evening. Oh, right, okay. I think you're interested in the breathing new life into empty property. Would you? I just wonder whether members would consider bringing that forward.
Yep. Okay, so we're
item 16.
Shifting to item 16, reports from the project development officer on the breathing new life into properties. So we've got 3 actual proposals at 15 Bailey Street, 3 and 3A Willow Street, and 60 Beatrice Street.
Just as a introduction, you've obviously set aside £20,000. You've already allocated £15,000. I just need to highlight that. It is likely that you'll include a sum in the budget. That'll certainly be the recommendation from officers for next year. So yeah, I'll
Okay. Thank you. I've got Councillor Kerr.
Can I just raise a point of sort of principle, really? I think the first 3 applicants are fairly straightforward in that they were the actual business that was going to be operating, and therefore they'd already got a lease and we were assisting them to set up. My sense is that I think 2 of these applicants are people are landlords, if you like, and I understand they've taken on a building that needs a lot of investment, but I'm just in my own mind saying that when we've given them the grant, I suppose there's no certainty that the building will actually then be occupied. They may still sit there as an empty property. So I suppose I don't think we clarified this, I'll be perfectly honest, it was a new scheme, we didn't make this clear, but I just want to look my colleagues around, because I think we need to think about that principle before we can consider these 3 applicants. I don't have a particular view on it, but I do think before we drift into considering them on one-by-one process, we ought to think about that. Remember, Clark's got some views.
So, yeah, I mean, the question is, is the grant dependent on it actually resulting in the building being occupied, or are we okay with landlords just sprucing up the property to make it more marketable and increasing the likelihood of finding a tenant?
I'd say from the inception, the concept was we're giving the money to somebody who's then going to start trading. You know, we're at that
to
stage.
help a business open.
Oh, there's a tenant there who's already signed a lease. I don't, no, sorry, I'm talking too long. I don't really mind whether the money goes to the landlord or the tenant, but it goes at a time when there's a tenancy in place and that we can be as confident as we could ever be that that's going to be a business. I don't think we want to get into the business of just giving money to landlords who are doing properties up to put them back on the market and try and sell them again or get a tenant. I'm sorry, I don't think that was the purpose of the scheme.
Okay. I mean, are you proposing that?
You get a view from my colleagues, and
okay.
I just, you know,
I'm just
the
conscious
first
of time,
time it's just
so
come up, so.
Okay, yeah. It is a valid point, but should we decide them as we go through the applications, or are you proposing a sort of policy?
Supposing we decide that as a point of principle
As a
before we
point of
consider these
principle.
applications, even if it means putting them back to the next meeting that we're now having sometime in the future,
Okay.
because I do think it's a departure from what I envisaged when I voted for the scheme. I do admit
Okay.
we didn't specify that, but it was what was in my head. But I don't know what was in everybody else's head, so I'm happy to be outvoted on it and people to take a different view. I'm not.
Yeah, I get that, and it might just be a little bit unfair on the current applicants who've gone through the process in good faith. And so I'm just wondering if, as a point of principle, it would wait until, you know, it would be moving forward beyond these current applications. But Councillor Jones, did you wish to speak?
Well, I was going to second that. We do want to try and get the money to the right places rather than the landlord who could then sell the property or whatever. So, but as I said, it's difficult when we've got the applications in front of us and we try and change policy as they're doing it. So I think we just need to be careful on that point. So whether we can not vote on it tonight, but then maybe next time we need to do that.
You know,
Put that in, yeah.
on further applications
Yeah,
after these. But
I might argue the opposite. If we determine these and then change the policy, these will have got through and others will be barred. At the moment, nobody's got through because the three we gave it to were all businesses, you know, that were already there. They'd already signed the lease, so we haven't had this situation arise until now. So I'm a little bit on the other side. If you're going to do it, I think you need to do it before you determine these. Otherwise, it seems even more unjust that these get through and the next ones don't.
okay, anyone else have a view? Councillor Davis?
Yeah, I totally agree with Councillor Jones and Councillor Kerr. The idea is
Your mic's gone off, sorry.
the idea is for the people that's going to run the business to be in there and run it, and we don't want to be supporting some builder landlord to tart it up and then sell it and make a lot of money out of it. That's not that's what the scheme's about at all.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I've got Councillor Owen, then Councillor Rose.
So it's a matter of the three that we have before us tonight are under the scheme that we've given out for this budgetary. Like we gave 20,000 under this current scheme. Once that's run out, the next scheme comes out in the next budget. You can then change the terms at that point on the new scheme. Like we can't give any more money once we've used up the budget unless we pass a motion to say that. So I feel like we can go through these three based on the existing terms, and then if we want to amend the scheme in the future, we should do that from when the next budget comes out to fund that project with anything that any other councillors want to add stipulations onto that project.
Okay, thank you.
Just in terms of the criteria, councillors, it is dependent on a new landlord taking over. So it's not the landlord. So one of the criteria is it's not the landlord who had control over the property at the point it became empty. So it's beyond there. So that's the criteria as agreed. So and that sets out in several reports. So just to clarify that.
Okay.
So a landlord where the building when it became empty.
So it was specified, is what you're saying? That
It wasn't eligible.
This
Yeah.
situation was
It would be a
actually...
new landlord.
It is in the policy?
Yeah.
Okay. So they were applied for under the stipulated policy of being new landlords. Right. So, sorry, Councillor Kerr, I can tell you want to speak.
You're missing the point, really. It's not that they're new landlords, it's that the lease isn't in place.
No, I understand that.
No.
That's the point.
No,
I
but-
get that they're new landlords, but that's not the issue.
Yeah, but that's what we agreed in the scheme. Yeah. So, yeah.
I was just clarifying the point.
Yeah. Yeah. So they were eligible to apply for these grants. Is what the clerk is saying. Yeah.
A motion just to try and get a vote on
Okay.
it since we I probably move that we defer these grants to the next meeting with consideration that we ask for the clerk to do a report on which ones of those would be successful if we introduced a policy clause that said that we will only grant aid when a lease is in place with a person to operate. So we've got the safety of knowing that when we give the grant to do the property up, there's a lease already signed for, I think it's a boutique, a beauty therapy in this case, the first one, that's already been identified. Because that's the risk to me, that we just give them grants to the property and it just ends up as being
Still empty.
still sitting there empty. The whole point is to be able to say to people, use this money to get this property back into use, and I just fear we might not do that.
Okay.
And then we can consider that at the meeting that we're having, a special meeting, and if that, but we can consider that.
Right, okay, thank you. Is that seconded at all? Councillor Maguire? Yeah, okay. That's been seconded. That we defer this item and make the decision following a report from the clerk as to which of the applications would be eligible if there was a clause that there was a lease in place for a business to occupy the building following the grant. Okay, so that's been seconded. Councillor Owen.
Well, I'm happy to defer the thing that we are getting on. I think we need to defer a few more of the items on the agenda if we're having another meeting in the next couple of weeks, just to get through in period. I don't think that doing a report is going to change our decision. Like, are we saying that we're then going to change the terms and then make our decision based on the report that can or cannot be done? So I'm going to vote against this motion purely because I think we've given the terms, we can make the decision now looking through the 3 grants, and based on what they've given to us, we can make a decision whether to grant one application, none. I think we're limited to 1. There's 3 in front of us. Just make the decision now and get on with it.
Yeah. I take your point. Councillor Rose.
Yeah, you're right. We've got a bit stuck in this thing, as when grants come in, we give some people grants and not other people grants. So because they fit the criteria of applying for the grant, we don't have to necessarily choose them. So we could choose one of them and say for whatever reason we think the others don't. We're able to do that. We just feel guilty, don't we? Feel we've got to kind of say yes to them all. So we are able to.
And the point that Councillor Owen's making
Yeah.
is that there's only £5,000 actually left in the
So
in the
it'd be better
budget.
to give it.
So
It seems better to give it to me. I would have chosen, if I was speaking on it, to give it to the person who is going to open a shop, and because it's a good proportion of what they need to do it, and it's likely they'll go ahead. Whereas one of them, the total cost of their renovations is 365,000, and 5,000 is such a small part of that. It seems, anything could happen. They might never get to that stage of opening it. So I think the third one is likely to be successful. So that's what I'd vote for.
Okay, right, okay. So, but we have Councillor Kerr's proposal that was seconded. So I think if we can move to the vote on that, on whether or not to defer, ask for the report and make a decision at the next meeting.
December meeting.
The December meeting of council. All in favour? 3, 4, 5, 6. All against? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Any abstentions? 1 abstention. So with my casting vote, I'll vote against that proposal. I think we should make the decision because these were 3 applications made under the rules.
You like to have 2 votes?
Yeah. Casting vote of the chair. Yeah.
If it fits it.
Okay. But we do only have £5,000 left in the budget, and we have 3 applications in front of us. So I've got Councillor Rose who wishes to speak.
Can I just propose, as I've just said, that it seems much more worthwhile giving money to the Beatrice Street shop. That's the one that's, it's a good proportion of what they need, and that they're ready to open an actual shop. And it's more likely to happen.
Okay. So there's a proposal that we grant the money to A3, the Beatrice Street property. Does anyone else wish to speak on that or make any further amendments? No. I shall take a vote on that then. All in favour? 1, 2, 3, 4. Any against? Any abstentions? 1 abstention, thank you. So that has now exhausted the budget for that scheme. if the scheme renews in the next budgetary round, people can apply again, but we now have the opportunity to look again at the eligibility criteria and take into account what Councillor Kerr has said. Okay, has that dealt with that item satisfactorily?
I can't answer that question, Mr. Mayor. It
Because
solves the matter.
I mean, we have no further money in the budget, so without a major
Yeah.
thing, we can't now grant money to the other two applicants, can we? Councillor Rose.
Could we make sure that we write back to the other two and say that, you know, we know they applied in good faith and, you know,
But the
that
budget,
kind of thing,
yeah,
just to emphasise that we're sure they're trying to get it together. And,
the budget
that'd be
pot is
great.
now, and hopefully there will be a new round agreed in the budget in January. Councillor Kerr.
Just that when we do the new budget, if we do a new round, we specify whether people can reapply or not, because you know, I don't know the answer to that question, but I'm sure you're going to be asked whether they can reapply in the new year. So we'll need to make a decision on that before we set the new scheme up.
Yeah. Okay then. Thank you. So that's item 16. We should now return to item 13. 13A is the report on the Oswestry Town Council projects. That's where we are, isn't it?
Yeah.
13A. Thank you very much.
Happy to take any questions, not to take any answers. Take any questions on a project update. I would like to highlight the application for lottery funding for Clwyd Mansion, just to give you an update because it's such a significant piece of work. The application for the development phase of that project is asking the National Lottery for £600,000. That will be an 18-month project. The contribution from OTC is £25,000 cash, which is budgeted for, and £25,000 match funding, which is time, officer time, rooms and what have you. The delivery grant that we'll be requesting will be in the region of 3.2 million. The OTC contribution from that will be in the region of £100,000 plus in-kind match. I think we're still piecing together what that budget might look like. I think just give you an update to manage expectations on this. We're looking at a December 2028 when the work is finally completed. But the funding that we're applying for will give us 12 months to actually develop a business and get the businesses operating from there as well, with funding, with resources. So that's the plan, to make sure that it is a sustainable solution that goes in there. So yeah, I'm really pleased with that. I think I'm asking the Mayor to sign a letter, or asking Council to sign a letter of support later. But I think that represents a good deal for the Town Council.
Thank you. Councillor Kerr.
Let me just place on record our thanks to Alan and all his staff. It's an amazing achievement for a town council to lever in that sort of funding into Oswestry. I don't know when the last time that sort of funding was ever given to Oswestry, but to secure it from a parish council rather than from somewhere like Shropshire Council is quite an incredible achievement. And so I just want to, I think we all ought to owe a debt of thanks to Alan and all his team, because I think they've gone beyond what was normally expected of a town clerk in a town of this size. It was a great letter from the, I don't know who wrote your letter, Mayor, but whoever you wrote it about, I thought it was a very nice letter as well. So yes, I just think we need to really celebrate what we're doing and how much resources we're putting into town to look after our huge heritage of the town.
I think the time to celebrate is when we get there. Okay, so let's just leave that one for now.
Put all the work in that front, don't we? And you've done all the work.
So
Thank you, Councillor.
Just a matter to consider. I think members supported a motion to set up a community meeting to look at transport. I've given an update on that. I'm struggling to be able to deliver that with no support from Shropshire Council. I have contacted several officers, but obviously they've got other stuff going on. I can't see the benefit of Oswestry Town Council fronting a meeting on transport and highway issues, but obviously if members wish, we can carry on with that. I have suggested, because the motion was for this to happen relatively soon, and I did include it on the agenda last time, but that if we do something, it'll be February 2025, but I think you need to perhaps think about the deliverability of this and how much time and effort you want to put into it, and whether Shropshire Council's input is essential. So I'll leave that one for you.
Thank you. Councillor Owen.
Could I propose we remove this from the project register based on the time left until the end of the council? There'll be a new Shropshire Council, there'll be a new town council. This is far more likely to happen after when the new Shropshire Council might be more willing to have conversations with parish councils or not. So I feel like until then we can't, nothing's going to change in February. We might as well leave it until the new council. So,
Seconded. All in favour? Okay, lovely, thank you. Oh, of course you can, yeah. Okay, so
Any other questions on the projects?
happy with that, so asked to note the update. All in favour of noting the update? Thank you. Okay, so 13B is risk register, to consider the strategic risk register attached.
So, yeah, obviously, for members to consider the updates against there, it has been reviewed, but clearly one of our risks on our strategic register is the management of public events, and it would be remiss not to refer to the firework evening on Saturday night. I think the council issued an immediate apology after that event. It's not an experience that we wanted the public to have. It was a very difficult evening, and clearly we need to put steps in place to make sure that this does not happen again. We've taken some immediate action, as you would expect, and our priorities are events that are upcoming, with the Christmas light switch on next week and then Christmas music live a couple of weeks later. So we've reviewed all our plans for the upcoming events. These are very different to the firework evening. These are tried and tested events, but nevertheless we have made some changes. We've recognised that there were significant lessons to learn, and we've made those immediately. So I want to give you that reassurance. As I mentioned, as the Mayor mentioned earlier, we do need to carry out a review of Saturday night to identify what went wrong and why. I will bring a report forward. This will be in the public domain. We've obviously taken on board all the feedback and the criticism that we've had, and I would like to invite input from members into that process as well, because a number of members were there as members of the public. Clearly we need to consider the future of this event in this location as well, but that's for a future meeting. I think the scope of this needs to include leadership. It needs to include roles and responsibilities. It needs to cover communication and the overall sort of stewardship of the event. It's an event delivered in partnership. It's not solely the town council, and clearly other parties are involved and are implicated. I need to be careful now, given what Richard said earlier about potential legal action. I need to obviously be mindful of that and not add any further at this point.
Thanks, Aaron. Thank you. Yeah, Councillor Kerr.
Yeah, I'm grateful to the town clerk for that. I think we probably need, due to the reaction of this and the concern about it, to have an independent review. So I'm not asking for the independent person to do the review. I think it's perfectly appropriate for you as town clerk to do the review. But I think when it comes to councillors, councillors should have the benefit of an independent expert's advice on whether we've covered everything we're supposed to have covered. That would give us a due diligence reassurance, I think, going forward to make decisions about similar events in years to come. So I'd like to make that as a motion. I know there'll be a cost to that, and I know you're going to say we don't know what the cost is, but I think we're at a stage where we cannot proceed without having that reassurance that the work we've done is subject to that process.
And I would welcome that. Clearly this needs to be robust. Clearly, as officers, we need to make sure that this is done. So yeah, I would welcome that.
Yeah, it's probably the most important decision we'll make tonight. So is that motion seconded? Thank you, Councillor Maguire. Does anyone else wish to speak? I'll move to the vote then. All in favour? Thank you. Yeah, that's unanimous. A review will be made and fully independently.
There'll be independent input into that.
There'll be independent input and to make sure that it's been done thoroughly, properly, and
And importantly, it's the scope, isn't it? It's the scope of the review that it covers everything that we need to cover. Is that you want that independent?
Yeah. Thank you, councillors. 13C then was the letter of support, which you've all had a chance to read. So we're asked to endorse this letter to go with our National Lottery application funding for the Llywyd Mansion. Any further comment, Councillor Owen? Propose we endorse. I'll happily second that. All in favour then? Thank you. Any against? Any abstentions? Yeah, thank you, Councillor. Okay. Item 14 then are the reports from the Finance Officer. Market data, car park data, budget monitoring and the creditors. Does anyone have any questions, comments? Councillor Jones.
Yeah, the car parks have been quite well there. Very much. Are coming to Walter Street, aren't they? And our town is doing well, so it's good to see. It's good. It's always a good barometer of how well we're doing. I see the traders and the markets from out there closely. And I think we need to keep working on it because I think that is the downturn in that sort of market areas. So, yeah, overall, pretty good.
Move we note on block. Seconded, Councillor Davis. All in favour? Thank you. Any abstentions on that one? Item 15 then, the report from the Operations Manager. So it's your moment, Henry.
Evening, councillors. Evening, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much. This report is we got majority of it touches updates, but then there's one request that's been made as well. So just to give members a bit of an update with the centre. So since the transfer took place beginning of September, we've been working hard to ensure the building is compliant and covered remotely with fire safety and security, which it is. There were ongoing issues with internet connection due to Shropshire Council servers. That has now been rectified, and the building is now functioning as it once was. Officers meet regularly with partners in the building, with the building management group, which the next meeting is actually tomorrow afternoon. And we discuss repair, maintenance, running of the building, and also the external parking, which is it's just starting to become a bit of a dumping ground, should we say, for vehicles. So that's going to be discussed tomorrow. The cross fountain, those of you who might have walked past it today, it is nearly there. The final piece is going to be put together over the coming days. So we're really pleased with Ian Story and his team over at CBS Limited for continuing to put that back in place. Last week we carried out an exercise within the Guildhall to monitor incoming calls and incoming visitors. And the date, time and the reasons for the call or visit were captured, and the data shows that over 80% of these calls or visits are actually directed towards Shropshire Council. Officers are looking into costings to introduce a filtering system or an automated system to allow calls to be directed to the correct council. And these costings will obviously be presented to yourselves, and members will be invited to discuss the matter. Other councils operate such a system, and it's to order to free up officers' time to make more efficient within the Guildhall. Christmas light installation, we've had words that the Christmas lights are, well, some of them have already gone up along Beatrice Street, Adelaide Street, etc. And the remainder will be going up over the course next week. So from the 12th onwards, the remainder of the Christmas lights will be going up, ready for the switch on the 21st of November. And the final item within the report is the Gattaca allotments. A request has been made by the Gattaca Allotment Committee to obtain permission to install a compost toilet within the allotments. The location for this toilet would be against one of the hedgerows, which is covered by largely covered by trees for most of the year, making it a tough task for anything to grow substantially. Due to the Allotment Liaison Committee not meeting for over the last 12 months, this request has come to Council.
Thank you very much. Okay. Oh, got Councillor Rose.
Sorry. It was just about the last item, actually, the allotments, and this might be something for next May when we look at the partnership panels and all the meetings. But I have found for the last 2 years, maybe 3 years probably, the meetings with the allotments hasn't been core. There's been myself and Stephen, and that's it. So it sort of seemed pointless having them, and I'm wondering whether it's a necessary committee, because I've also had feedback from the people who run the allotments that they feel they're called to the meeting and then the councillors aren't there anyway, and that they feel they have to wait for the meeting to bring things forward, whereas really they could just talk to Henry like they have now, because the meeting didn't happen. They've talked to Henry and Henry can bring it to council, and it's not like the markets where there's so many complications around all the market traders, whereas they're just, growing their vegetables, and the few things that come up, they could come to council. So I'm just thinking of a way forward. We've got too many meetings that we go to. It might be one that we don't need.
I mean, yeah. Again, it could be something that the new council in May decides to knock on the head. But I've got Councillor Maguire.
So first of all, just to say, should we suspend in standing orders because it's just coming up to 9 o'clock?
I don't know if we need to anymore.
Oh,
We've
of
got
course,
till
no, I
9:30,
forgot.
haven't we?
No, hang on. I would still recommend you doing so, because I think my view, because you approved standing orders this evening, do they come into force? There's a question: do they come into force this evening or the next meeting?
Let's
I'd
cover
say
ourselves.
The next meeting, so let's cover yourselves.
All right.
And also, I'd just like to say I welcome the idea of the telephone operational scheme that you're looking at doing. If it's freeing up officers' time, it allows officers more time to be doing the many projects as council do have in motion at the moment. And I'd also like to ask, will we be having an unveiling at the cross? Because it's been such a big or contentious issue for everybody in town. I just want to make sure that there's some sort of unveiling. Because at the end of the day, it's stood there for hundreds of years. It's going to stand there for another hundreds of years. So we should mark the occasion.
Yeah.
Happy to answer the latter point. We're trying to arrange something for the cross. I think it's obviously going to be open and up as it is today. But yeah, we will mark that occasion.
It's worth celebrating, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, thank you. So, yeah, with that in mind, then I'll propose that we suspend standing orders, our old standing orders, to allow us to carry out the business of the meeting beyond 9 o'clock. Seconded by Councillor Upton. All in favour? Thank you. Okay, so item 15 then, just to conclude, with thanks to... Oh, sorry.
We need a decision on the compost toilet, Mr.
Yes, we do need a decision. Yeah, okay. So do we agree to allow a compost toilet to be installed in the allotments, the Gattaca allotments? Do you have details on the workings of a compost toilet?
We did have a meeting. I don't want to extend the meeting, but we have had a meeting about compost toilets.
Was it demonstrated?
Not far off. Obviously it'll be decent and yeah, you know.
Modesty will be maintained.
It's not the point. It's not the point, Councillor.
Okay, so yeah, I propose that we allow the toilet to be installed. Seconded by...
I'll second that, because I think make sure we've got that in place.
Okay, all in favour? Thank you very much. Any against? Any abstentions? No, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Henry. A lot going on, but all positive there, I think, so thank you. So we can skip forward to 16B now, the report on the vehicle activated signs set out for us. So anything to add to what's in the report there, Aaron?
No, I think there's a recommendation in there that you ask the police partnership panel who the Police and Crime Commission is attending the next meeting. So I'd just encourage you to do that. There's some clear three areas there where we'd recommend you raising those directly with the police. Just to advise you that Shropshire Council are updating their policy around vehicle activated signs. It's not as easy to have them installed. In fact, they're against them. now. So I think there's a number of challenges. Should, and I can see members would be keen to have these in their areas. We have one mobile one, but yeah, as I say, the Shropshire Council are not keen on introducing new vehicle activated signs.
Okay. It is recommended that the matter is raised at the next police partnership panel. Okay, yes. So there are, there are some concerns in the data. I just wanted to clarify, because it's all shown in kilometres per hour, but is that just a? Is that just a mistake, or are those actual? Are those actually measured in kilometres per hour?
I'm expecting that is miles per hour.
Okay.
I expect that is miles per hour. I will clarify that because clearly nobody's speeding then, are they?
But that's not possible.
Yeah. So that's absolutely not possible, having seen the speed values. So I think that's a graph issue.
Yeah. I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah. No, I think I'm grateful you picked that up.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the graphs.
It's the graphs.
We have had issues getting the data off the signs and producing the graphs. It's massively complicated because it's based on a number of speed variables and speed values. So each car registers a number of speeds, and so it's actually saying it's a car or is it speed values. So it has been more complex than it should be. But I think we're starting to give you the data that you need.
Okay, Councillor Maguire.
I won't keep you. I'll just say I think we should definitely take it forward to the police partnership panel. Obviously, there are areas that are showing high speed in that area, which is a concern. If Shropshire Council aren't willing to support that idea, then maybe fully situated speed cameras in the long run could be a better idea. Or maybe we should all start setting up residents. What do they call it? Frank, you've got
community speed watch.
Community
Frank's
speed
got it
watch.
in his area in your other parish, so that's why I want to know. But yeah, a speed watch. Maybe that's the next option.
It'd be really good to get the police's advice and input on this, wouldn't it? Councillor Davis.
Yes, very quickly. The police don't take much notice of it, and if you want anything done if you want to alter something on the road, the councils won't use the speed camera data. They want the rubber strips for accurate measurements. However, the speed cameras do slow people down. I'm not saying they slow them to 30 mile an hour or whatever they are, but they do slow them down. We've got 3 or 4 in Whittington, and if you follow cars down the road, you can see them as soon as it comes up. You will see the brakes come on, and they do slow down. And I know coming the one by Jay's coming into Oswald Street Colour Supplies. Before we had that one, I said, well, people are slowing down there anyway, and I think Jay actually said, no, they don't, and he was right, because I can come in there and I can be doing 35 and see the sign click, and I'm down to under 30. So they do, and people will ignore them, but majority of people will take notice of them. So I think they are good. Yeah. So why they want to stop them? I guess it's money.
Yeah, but yeah, no, I agree. I think they do bring down the average speed quite successfully, but as our data sort of supports. But yeah, okay, so all in favour of putting that at the next police partnership panel? Any against? Any abstentions? Thank you. Then item C, 16C, free bus travel initiative.
So just to highlight, more people using buses, the free bus, making most of that. The key question you got, we've been trying to extend the free Saturday travel. We did come up with an arrangement with the Cube, I don't know if you recall that, but it seems Shropshire Council have issued a tender and have got somebody lined up for the 401 service. Now that raises a challenge of whether you should be running a duplicate service alongside that on a Saturday, and whether that is actually there are some commercial implications there, because obviously the company's thinking it's getting all the business and it's not, because somebody else is buying it for free. So I think there's a couple of questions there for you. Do you want to, if the 401 service carries on, do you want us to extend the free Saturday provision to that service, or do you want us to not do that and work with Dial a Ride stroke Cube to find a new route where places are missed in town? So there's a couple of options for you there. I appreciate it's late tonight, that might not be the right time to have that discussion, and perhaps I could just, to enable you to have the time, bring this report back to you in December.
Yeah, a little bit more
It's up to
detail
you.
if you
I just want to
maybe
give you
have
that
another
option.
discussion with the Cube and see what the options are.
Cube are happy to work with us. The issue is, I don't know who's got the 401 service, and I would like to know whether you would wish to carry on. Sorry, I'm tired. Wish to carry on with the free Saturday travel on the 401 service or not? It would help me in terms of making bring a report forward.
Okay, councillors, Councillor Rose.
It doesn't sound like it's a good idea if they're. I mean, we wanted to put it in because it
wasn't there.
Wasn't acting. So if they're acting, it seems unfair to compete with them at the moment. They're first trying to get it off the ground, really. And we've got 4 going, haven't we?
Councillor Maguire.
I totally agree, and I go on the clerk's recommendations that we perhaps bring this forward with more in a later date, as suggested. I propose that we do that, and we can have more information where the service could be better utilised elsewhere.
Okay, yeah, I think I'd support that myself. Anyone else with anything to say? Or so that's seconded. All in favour? Thank you. Oh, sorry. Yes, any against? Let's do it properly. Any abstentions? 1. Okay. Item 17 then, reports from the Markets and Events Officer. First one is Oswestry Food Festival. Yes, okay. Aaron,
Yeah, I think the proposal here to work with the bid is a real positive move forward for the Food and Drink Festival. It brings a little bit more capacity, more resource, and some new creativity and new ideas forward as well. It also de-risks the events from your point of view, because there are others who are able to provide additional skills and capacity. Clearly then it means it needs to be branded accordingly, but I don't see a particular issue for that. The Town Council has held this event on its own for a few years now. It'd be fair to say that the last year was heavily criticised for whatever reasons people chose to do that. But I would say, you know, it brings a lot of money into the town, brings a lot of footfall, and I think this is a real positive way forward.
Okay, Councillor Maguire.
Just to say that I support this because, again, it goes back to what we discussed before with Henry. It alleviates some of the officers' work time, and hopefully it gives them opportunity to work on bigger projects like the Clwyd Mansions at the minute that needs a lot more attention. So, yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Jones.
You mentioned criticism, Town Clerk. What was the main criticism?
Yeah, it was a good event. I think it was relating to the market traders and the Bailey Head, and I don't think it was a particularly positive view of that. But clearly, we are a market town. The market traders support us year in, year out, and I think they need to be supported and carry on. But we need to find a better way of integrating the festival with the market and making it clear, you know, to people. You know, come every Saturday, the market's here, and a bit more of that. So, yeah, I think we heard the criticism, we reacted, so I think that's a really good thing.
Thank you. Councillor Price.
I just welcome the fact of collaborative working. Businesses, marketeers, town council, it can only bring good, can't it?
Absolutely. Okay, so the idea then to work in partnership with Oswestry Bid then, have their expertise and promotion and share the load, and hopefully end up with an even better event going forward. I think it's been proposed and seconded. effectively. If not, I'll second Councillor Maguire. All in favour? Thank you, that one's unanimous. And 17B, Oswestry Market and Events. We've got the overview of the market activities, which, so just bring Aaron.
Yeah, sorry, just trying. I think it's clear from market statistics that there are a couple of markets that are struggling. Wednesday market, and I think the long and short of it is that we need new traders. There's lots of good stuff in this report and lots of positive action, but we need more traders for the outdoor market. So there's a couple of thoughts on that. I've challenged the retail markets manager to start recruiting others, to start to to look at how we operate the winter market and the summer market, because they're very, very different things. I think that at times in the winter there are several gazebos down the street and it doesn't feel like a market. Ultimately, we would need to bring it back to you and have a policy around this, but I think it's really important that we have a strong offer, that the market feels like a market, not a collection of stalls. There is an issue I just asked for a decision on, please. The extraction system for the cafe in the indoor market needs upgrading. We've found it quite difficult getting quotes from companies, and they're very, very different. It's something we need, we can't postpone. I'm still pursuing to get all the quotes in line with financial regs, and I'll do that. But can I ask for delegated responsibility to just get that done? It is a health and safety issue. It does affect people's businesses. So once I have a price that we're happy with, just ask if I can get on with that, please. And then I think aside from that, all quite positive.
Yeah, happy to propose what Aaron's asked for there. Delegation to get the extraction system upgraded in the cafe. Seconded. All in favour? Any against? Abstentions? Thank you. And there were no further recommendations in that report, were there? So move we note that report then. All in favour? Thank you. Okay, without further ado, I'll close the meeting. Thank you all very much.